Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Naked Eye. I'm joined here today by the drag queen Vanity a la mode, aka Kyle Miller. Kyle, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm actually really excited for this podcast, mainly because we talked about this a little bit off camera, but the drag community is something I know like nothing about. Like I didn't even know how common it was until this pandemic, really. I see one clip of RuPaul's Drag Race and it's just like, all right, this is the whole thing. uh
Well, you've also had RuPaul's Drag Race like every single week of the pandemic,
mm,
right? It's been. I mean, not to say overkill, but you've definitely had a lot of offerings, right? Between the UK and Canada's Drag Race and All Stars and uh, what was it? What's the one on now? Australia, right? So you've had
okay.
tons of stuff to watch for sure.
Right. Yeah, so it's just something I just would really want to learn about because it's just something that it really fascinates me, and it's something I'm all for, right? Because I think if somebody wants to express themselves in that sort of way, I think, go for it. You're not hurting anybody, right? And I think it's pretty cool.
Absolutely, yeah. It's an art form.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the first question I want to start off with in general is, how do you feel when someone just kind of asks you questions about, vanity or just drag stuff? Is it kind of bother you? Because on one hand, it's like people are just genuinely curious, right? And that's not a problem. But a stupid question is a stupid question, right? So in general, how do you feel?
I mean, I think it's fine. I think, obviously, like you said, for individuals like yourself who are not familiar with the drag community at all, you have a lot of questions about it, and I think like anything that you're curious about, um, like I've had people who maybe over ask because doing drag is very sexualized. Some like a lot of drag queens, sexualize themselves. You're shaping the body. You're sort of exaggerating a woman's form, and so often people think that that means that you can ask questions about your sexual preferences or if you've ever had sex in drag or all of these sort of like
Jeez.
very personal questions. And so I think like anything, like for asking people about like where they met their husband, you would sort of get the story, but then you wouldn't say, oh yeah, so like do you like it on your back or do you like it like do you know what I mean? Like you wouldn't
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah. And so because of and the gay community is very open and that sort of thing. So people think that because you're very over the top as a drag queen, that they're allowed sort of like into your life a little bit more than you would probably ask a normal person a question.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair. I just that
Right.
was that was quite the analogy. I like that really caught me off guard.
Well, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean, though. You wouldn't ask someone for a story about their life or ask them about their hobby and then
Yeah,
immediately be like, oh,
yeah.
by the way, what are
I th-
you
I think
into?
that's actually really interesting that you point that out because like I think the same thing kind of happens with like people who work in like the adult film industry. It's like just because they work in porn, you could just ask them the most disgusting questions.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. And it's like, just, you can't, don't lose your class, don't lose your
Yeah.
integrity just because, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's like just because someone is a bit more out there and expressing themselves doesn't mean you can really be out there and ask them like really personal questions.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Um so could you tell me like what the drag community is like? Like I just said, like I don't really know anything about it. Like I don't want like a 2 hour answer on like the history of it. But like, how did it? Is it a fairly new thing? Is it something I haven't like heard about until like the pandemic?
Well, I mean, like drag itself as like a form in existence, um, like dates back to like Shakespeare,
Oh wow.
right? Like the idea of like I think in Shakespeare it was more common for women to be dressed as men, um, kind of thing. I'm probably getting that wrong, and someone's gonna like at me about it, but but so it has been around in a huge form. I mean, the common drag that you are experiencing, like with RuPaul's Drag Race, is sort of a like a commodity version of drag, like a very accessible, um, like packaged presentation of what drag is, right? And so, I would say if you are interested in drag, to sort of look beyond the scope of RuPaul's Drag Race. And not to say that it's not an incredible platform and all of those wonderful things that RuPaul is obviously an icon, and has done incredible things for the community. But if you look back at drag, I mean, drag came out of like protest. Drag was used as a way to empower gay men, because gay men were obviously like compared to women all the time. They were like called sissies and all of that sort of thing. And so the idea of like camp drag is the idea of like, watch me be a woman, right? Or at least
Mm.
sort of like that sort of what I take from it, and sort of take from that time of like protest. And so it's sort of like our thing. It's like we, as gay people, like we're like, we're making our entertainment. It's like in our culture. It's almost like it's I think it might be an odd analogy for some people, but I sort of see it as like when you look at different cultures, and you look at different cultures that have like tribal dances, or things that sort of bring their community together, and sort of embolden them as a people. I mean, gay people, LGBTQI people have been, marginalized, and are still continue to be marginalized globally, by society. And so I think that drag sort of came, or part of it, and my understanding of it is that sort of drag is that idea of like bring us together, bring us entertainment. It's a cultural piece of the gay community, as I see it. Um, and then there's also like the performance side of things, right? And like for me, for example, I studied musical theater. I worked as an actor, and now my sort of like 9 to 5 career has taken me in a different direction. But this is sort of like my art form. It's like the way that I can kind of express myself. And then I also think drag too is a way, like again within the community, to sort of like help those in need. There's definitely a charitable aspect to drag, to sort of giving back, right? And I've definitely used my drag for that, and for creating awareness, and all of that kind of stuff. So there's definitely it's rooted within LGBTQI culture. And so I don't know if some of that is lost, but like what you're seeing is like a commodified version of drag, right?
Okay.
It's sort of, it has a pop culture twist to it. It's very, but in terms of, that is not all the scope of drag, right? And so you've got
Okay.
lots of different types of queens and kings, and all of that sort of stuff.
Kings. That's something I did
Kings are
not know
like
about.
the kings are like the opposite of drag queens. So drag queens would be, or drag kings is sort of like drag in male presented.
Oh, okay,
So
okay.
traditionally, when kings came onto the scene, or they've been around as long as drag queens, it would be a female identified person dressing as a male. And now,
Oh.
right, and now the scope is very different. That's why I say like when it started type of thing. That would be the easiest way to explain it, is like a male identified person dressing as a woman, or a female identified person dressing as a man. But that it opens up a whole other can of worms, because a drag is for everyone. And so there are drag queens who are like AFAB, so assigned female at birth, identify as a woman, and still do drag, right?
Mm.
And that is as valid as the drag that I do. That is as valid as anyone else's drag, right? And just like there are male identified people, um, most commonly assigned female at birth, trans men, who um, are drag kings. And so it's the same idea. Like when you see pictures of me, and I'm sort of like the epitome of a woman and all of that kind of stuff, often a drag king, again, I'm sort of generalizing a lot of things, but often a drag king would be sort of like a extremely masculine presentation of like what we think of masculinity, right?
Oh, okay. I don't know
But
why I
I guess,
thought. Go
sorry,
ahead,
go
go
ahead.
ahead, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, and then the idea is like those are very traditional thoughts of drag, right? So like a male dressing as a female, I identify as a male, I dress as a female. But I think as a general umbrella, you should really be thinking of drag as like the presentation of gender, right?
Okay, okay,
Like, and
okay.
sort of that sort of idea, right? Like it doesn't matter where you start. It doesn't matter how you identify out of drag. You can do drag, and you can do any sort of drag that you want to do,
Mm.
right? And so if like so if I was assigned male at birth, I'm a man, I identify as a man, I can do male drag. I can be a drag king, right?
Okay.
Just like a woman who is assigned female at birth, or a trans woman, or a gender non-conforming person can decide that they are a drag queen and that is their art form. They want to be a
Oh,
drag queen.
okay.
They can be a drag queen. So when I talk about like a man becoming a woman, or a woman dressing as a man, those are very traditional thoughts of drag. And so I try to sort of,
Mm.
umbrella that idea of gender with the overall presentation of drag, which is just a comment on gender.
Okay, interesting. Is that a common misconception that drag queens are just guys who dress up as women? Because that's just something that was in my brain this entire time before having this conversation.
No, I don't think it's wrong to think of a drag queen as a man who dresses as a woman. I think what I'm trying to do is just make sure that there's sort of an understanding that that's not all that drag is. It is a
Hmm.
component of drag, specifically on RuPaul's Drag Race, like how you've been introduced to drag. That is absolutely, and it's valid drag, and it is drag. But sort of what I'm trying to sort of bring it back to, or broaden the scope, is the gender community, or the gender community, the drag community is is far more expansive than what you've experienced in the last year watching all of the RuPaul's Drag Race,
Okay, I see what you're saying.
right? So, for example, you watched season 13.
I didn't even watch a season. I saw a clip on YouTube. I'm like, that looks interesting.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. So,
Yeah. I would not say
got
I'm
it,
a
got it.
loyal fan.
Okay, got it. So the example that I was going to bring up is Gottmik, who is a drag queen from season 13, top four, um, is a trans man. So identifies as a man, but was assigned female at birth, and
Okay.
does drag. That was a groundbreaking step for the show, right? Because as a show, they've always sort of presented the drag idea as the same as what RuPaul is, which is a male, assigned male at birth, who does drag as a woman. And so for them to bring Gottmik on the show and present that idea of drag, that was somehow groundbreaking on television. But what I'm saying is, like, that is part of our drag community, like, full stop, right? Like,
Mm,
that's always been a part of the drag community. Um, so yeah, so it's very expansive.
okay. Do you think that is it pronounced got milk?
Mhm.
Do you think that like that introduction of his character into that show really opened up people's eyes into what drag is? Because probably prior to that, people were just thinking that, or not all people, but some people probably just thinking that drag is just men dressing up as women.
Yeah, sure. I would say that for the general public who watches the show who is not LGBTQI identified, I would say that it probably opened up their eyes to say, "Oh, okay, I understand." Right? I think that any time that you can broaden the diversity that we see on television on any show, and we can present more diversity in the lived experiences of people that we see, I think is always good, right? Because there are people who probably sat down to watch that show who didn't know a trans man, and
Hmm.
hadn't been in conversation with a trans man, hadn't watched a trans man on television, didn't know anything about that experience. And, if that starts a conversation, if that gets people thinking about, the other lived experiences of other people, right? Because when we have compassion for other people's lived experiences, then we can find a way to sort of like coexist more harmoniously. We can have, we can have less conflict. We can have all of those great things that we talk about, that we want the world to be this, like, peaceful, beautiful thing. I think that, expanding the diversity that we see on screen, whether it be on RuPaul's Drag Race, or on Grey's Anatomy, or on Survivor, or wherever you're watching your television, um, it used to be always like, oh, I want to see people like me on television. I want to see people like me. And it's like, well, Frank, like, I think that's great, obviously, for people who have those lived experiences. But for me, as a cis white person, I want anyone that doesn't look like me on my television screen. Do you know what I mean? Because I want that diversity. I want to see other lived experiences. I want to understand, have compassion for those people, so that we can live better.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a interesting thought. How this I know, like, to an extent, RuPaul's Drag Race has popularized the drag community, but just how
Yeah.
much has it popularized it, you think?
Well, I mean, the show's been on for like 13 seasons. Like it used to be like back in the day, I mean, and local girls still do, but like you would work for nothing. You would work for like 50 bucks in tips, you know, and you'd get into drag and you'd go to the bars and you would just work really hard for basically nothing and you would just take the money and put it back into drag. Like it's hard to be, a full-time drag queen to really give it like I have a 9 to 5, right? And then I have these I do drag on the side. But now like Brooklyn Heights used to like every like weekly be like thrown into the splits for tips. And now she's like has sponsored ads on her Instagram to eat McDonald's fries. Do you know what I
Interesting.
mean? Like
Yeah.
her fee is in the multi like you have to pay her like, money to show up somewhere, right? And so that platform just made drag like there's drag cons in the UK and LA and New York, all over the place that pump out so much money not only into the economy but into the pockets of these drag queens. So absolutely.
Mm.
I mean, a huge impact um on the art form and like what it can do and the demand. I mean, Shangela was in A Star Is Born.
Oh,
Like so Shangela, like who Shangela is or no?
I do not know. You're
So, like
telling me
nothing.
names.
Yeah, okay.
You're telling
Yeah,
me names.
zero thing, zero thing. Well, hopefully I'll have my audience come and listen to this podcast. But Brooklyn Heights was a judge on Canada's Drag Race, which is the offshoot of the American RuPaul's Drag Race. Like all these offshoots, we've had a Canadian version. You should watch it. It's on Crave TV. Um, you can watch all 10 episodes, and I'll tell you later how I helped to produce one of them.
Oh, cool.
Um, and so Brooklyn Heights started as a bar queen, right? And she's now, living her best life, just doing her thing. And so, where was it going with that? Who else was I talking about?
Shangela?
Shangela. So Shangela was on like season 2 of RuPaul's Drag Race, like back in the day. They kicked her off because she was bad. They brought her back for a third season, and then she went on to be on All Stars, and then she was on a Christmas special, and now she's all over the place.
Hmm.
And so that is what RuPaul has been able to do for drag with these shows, like anything, right? Like you know any of the different facets of like art and stuff, if you get the like mainstream culture to jump on it, then she's taking it to the bank.
Oh, there you go. I'm glad to hear that. Just circling back really quickly, you said that you made an interesting analogy that like the drag community is like it's a culture in itself. Do you think that like other like cultures in general around the world, like Australian culture or British culture, or whatever, have their own interpretation of drag? And what do you think about that?
Oh yeah, that's a good one. I mean, it's like watching the Australia version right now. I'm sort of like, oh, okay, that's okay. Like it's a lot. I'm finding it to be a bit more campy. It's a bit more sort of like exaggerated and like big and over the top. Whereas in the States, for like a lot of years, it was very like what they call fishy drag, which is like when you really look like a biological assigned female at birth woman, like cisgendered
Okay.
woman,
Okay.
right? So if you want to Google, put on your list to Google Courtney Act. She's from Australia. She was on the American version of RuPaul's Drag Race, and she is what you would call a fishy woman. Like when I first was introduced to Courtney Act, I thought like, there's no way, like that is a woman. Like that idea, that sort of like realistic depiction, right? And so that's sort of like two different types of drag. Like a very campy drag is like, I would say I do campy drag because like I'm 6'1", like I'm a big guy, like I'm not gonna try to make you believe that I'm a woman. right? That's not the drag that I do. Whereas Courtney Act, her drag is absolutely stunning. It can be campy at times, but the part of her shtick is I look like a woman. Like I literally am a woman,
Yeah,
kind of thing.
I just googled Courtney Act. Wow.
Right. And so when you look at that, you're like, oh, there's a woman.
Yeah.
So that
Wow.
right. And there was a period of time like um I want to say maybe like 30 years, really like 30 years ago, 25 years ago in even Toronto drag scene where that was the idea, right? The idea was that these men looked like women, right? Or uh, oftentimes it was like trans women that were doing drag, right? Um, but yeah, Courtney actually is a remarkable queen,
Yeah.
remarkable.
Wow. That's yeah.
Um,
Like
yeah, I find it interesting too. Like, not that you're going to know this because you know nothing about drag, um, but in the UK on the BBC, they can't give out prizes because the BBC is like a public broadcasting system, so they can't like give away money to produce the show or whatever. They can't give away prize money, so they give out these badges, and then somebody wins, and they get to go like make a TV show or something. And so I've always found it really interesting because it's like that but you better be like really wanting to do drag, right? If you're going there for nothing, because you spend a lot of money to be on the show, to get all your stuff ready, to get new costumes, to like do all this stuff, right? So I've always found that really interesting. Um, but yeah, I mean, drag around the world is great, and that again, like it goes back to what you were talking about like what the platform has done, right? Like now there's like Drag España and there's Australia and there's the UK and they're coming out with there's Holland,
Hmm.
there's all these different drag races, so you can really sort of see what the take is, all around the world.
Well, yeah, I think that's great. I mean, it's something clearly a lot of people love doing. So I mean, I'd say go for it. And just googling Courtney Act, it's like some people are amazing at it. Like wow,
Yeah, absolutely.
that yeah, I couldn't even. If someone just showed me a picture, I just say that's a woman. Like that's insane. Like wow,
Yeah, yeah, it's like an art of illusion.
yeah, that's crazy.
Hmm.
So obviously, I wanted to have you on this podcast to talk about the drag community, but I want to know more about you. What got you into being a drag queen?
Well, like I said, I went to musical theater school, so uh, I've always been like really outgoing, very sort of into like art and expression and all of that kind of stuff. And then I was just fascinated. I sort of watched RuPaul's Drag Race like quietly, like since it started, right? Like I was like a season one kind of
Mm,
person in terms of watching that show.
watched it
And
before it was
so
cool.
yeah, exactly. And I just remember thinking like, oh wow, like what a transformation, what a remarkable thing that they're doing. And I sort of thought like, I think I could do that. And so I was really lucky because friends, in my community back in St. Catharines, were doing it. And there was a community there that I could sort of like, fit into and kind of learn from and all of that. Um, so I've been really lucky in that sense. And also like the charity aspect. So like after I finished school, I started working in nonprofit in fundraising, and so it was really sort of appealing that I could use this art form to also give back to my community, spread awareness, that kind of thing. Um, yeah, and so up till recently, I had been working at Rainbow Railroad, which is a nonprofit that helps persecuted LGBTQI individuals get to safety. So I've been doing that for a few years. So really, sort of like melding the two worlds of sort of giving back and doing my drag. Um, yeah, I mean, what else do you want to know? I like interior design. I like to run in my spare time. I drive a Toyota Yaris. Um, what else? I'm 35. I'm 35. I'm single. Um, I'm from St. Catharines, so that's like the
Okay.
connection to Niagara College. I
Okay.
have
Yeah.
been doing Brock. Uh, I've been doing bingo at Brock for a while, and Jack, who's the great events coordinator at NC SAC, had moved over to Niagara College, and she had seen how well bingo went at Brock, and so brought me over to Niagara, and I've been doing that for, I want to say it's like been like 6 years.
Oh wow.
I
Oh.
think it's been a while. Like I'm sure they could find really horrible pictures of me in drag. I'm sure they could.
Oh.
Yeah, but
Honestly,
I
I
mean,
thought
shout out. What?
I was just gonna say I thought the bingo thing was just something they introduced this year because of COVID. I did not know it was like a whole.
Yeah, have you not been?
I
Have
have
you
not
not
been.
been to
No,
a
no,
bingo in person?
no. I haven't. No, sadly, no.
Oh, come on down. Yeah, those are great. We usually do them. We do one on the Niagara Falls, Niagara on the Lake campus. I think in September we do that one, and then in February we do the Welland campus for like a Valentine's Day bingo
Ooh,
usually.
okay.
Yeah, it's in person. Usually, like this time we were doing like gift cards because obviously it's virtual, like we have to be able to send it to you.
Mm-hmm.
But in person, we do like it's like a sex ed bingo.
Hmm.
So we promote like positive sexual health and we tell everybody where to get their condoms and about consent and public like the public health people and all that kind of stuff, get tested, all that. And then we play for sex toys. So it adds, I know, it's the best, literally. Like sometimes, and like I don't really like plan out my comedy before I do a show. I just kind of like, I'm a very like situationally funny person. So like if you put me in a situation, I can like zing zing. Like I call it my 15
Mm-hmm.
minute set when I just kind of like boom boom boom, like we're having a good time, like cha da da. Like it's just like kitschy. But so like one of my bits is like I'll literally just pick up a sex toy and I'll like read the instructions of the sex toy, like insertion, not waterproof, like blah 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 blah. People just die for it. But I remember the one time I was doing a bingo and I gave out they did it so that they were like in bags so that if people didn't want to open the bag because it was a sex toy, like they didn't have to.
Mm.
Even though I like basically told everybody I was going to open the bags. And somebody came up and it was obviously an ESL student. And I was like, "Can I open this bag?" And they were like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Okay." So I opened the bag and it's a butt plug. And obviously the student has no idea what this is. And
Oh.
I am like, "Hello, like I know what this is." And and then they go and they like sit down to and we start playing bingo again. And then you pinpoint, I didn't see it, but the one organizer saw it. You pinpoint the moment that the person has either been able to translate, like take a picture and translate it or type it in or like or read it and figure out what this thing is. And they are just mortified
Like the moment of
because
realization.
right, because they've realized that I've probably done a 15-minute set on a butt plug with this ESL student. And they're like, "Oh my God, I don't even want to know what he said." And they just picked up and left the bingo.
Oh
And I
my
was like,
god.
"Oh no." I know. I was like, I probably scarred them for life. I probably scarred them for life, honestly.
Oh my god. I can't believe that. I did not know
Yeah.
you gave away sex toys. I literally thought it was a thing that the school introduced because of COVID, and they just gave away gift cards
No.
through Zoom. This has been a whole thing, huh?
Imagine? No, it's a staple at Niagara College. I'm so surprised. What year are you in?
I'm in my second year.
Well, maybe that's why. Maybe you because your first year, wait, was your were you at you were on campus at some point and then
Yeah,
COVID
yeah, yeah,
happened,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So you were only on campus for like what, half a year?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. So that's maybe why nobody told you where the cool kids were hanging out.
Yeah. I heard about it through a friend, like during this past year. I was like, oh, that's
Okay.
interesting. But it's one of those things that was just like, I'd be on my computer and it's like, oh, Dirty Bingle's happening right now. I'm just like, do I really want to hop in it right now? It's one of those things.
Well, the answer is yes. I'm offended.
Okay.
The
No,
answer is
you know what? You know
absolutely
what?
yes.
Okay. Okay. I swear, that whatever the next one is, you let me know, and I will be there
Yeah.
in
Well,
attendance.
hopefully we'll be back in September.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, do you know if it'll be in person? Is that even a possibility?
Not a clue, not a clue. I got my first dose vaccine
Oh,
like 2
cool.
days ago. Yeah,
Nice.
like 2 days ago. So I'm waiting to hear from them, but I mean, I think if they don't go back in person, we'll just go back online.
Mm. What,
Yeah.
Pfizer?
I got Pfizer, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Nice. How's your arm feeling?
My arm was fine. I had a pretty decent headache.
Oh.
Sort of like a little bit of just like kind of like a haze,
Mm.
just a little bit of like a oh geez, like kind of like in the back of my head kind of thing. But
Okay.
it's for the common good. Everybody go get the first shot they offer you. Stick it in your arm, get the second one. Let's end this thing.
I 100%
I
agree.
want to go outside.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to get a haircut. My hair is just like, if you look at it, it's just. I mean,
It's
I just
getting
took a
there. Yeah,
shower, so it
there we
looks all
go.
right. But oh man, like when I
Hilarious.
wake up in the morning, it's just like lettuce on my head. It's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm really lucky that I got a buzzer and I know how to do it.
Yeah. I mean, your hair looks
So,
looks mint. I like it.
just a quick little don't wanna see the back. I'm not gonna show you the back.
Oh, okay. That's fair. That's fair.
Well, this
So,
top this top is growth, is that's
oh,
the pandemic.
yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
pandemic is, like, halfway down my nose, but it's just the curls make it tighter, and then
Mm.
everything's good.
Your hair looks very naturally. Is your hair very naturally curly?
Very curly.
Yeah. Okay. So if it grows out, you get a bit of a Jufro, don't you?
I don't know if we say Jufro. Um, I'm gonna go ahead and encourage all of our listeners to correct people, immediately when they use terms like Jufro. So there's your little correction. It's
All right.
nothing to be ashamed about. But we don't use Jufro. We also don't use gypped. There's a few ones. We don't use powwow anymore. Let's have a powwow. We don't use that one anymore.
Interesting.
Um, yeah, we don't use Jufro either.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay.
Okay,
Yep.
I'll X that out of my vocabulary. Okay.
Wonderful. Next
Okay.
question.
Okay, so one thing I was kind of curious about was like, so you know, there's Kyle and then there's Vanity. How
Yeah.
how how much is Vanity incorporated in your life? Is it just something that you do on your like as a hobby, or is it more than that?
No, it's just it's like I mean, I don't know, like yeah, if the question is like she has her own personality, like she's almost like her own person. But I wouldn't say I think Kyle and Vanity are two very separate identities. I think that I do like obviously because Vanity is actually me. Newsflash to everyone at home.
What?
They're not a whole different person, but like it's not a multiple personality disorder. But because I'm an outgoing guy, because I'm sort of that like life of the party dude who like, it's very important for me that everybody feels included, everybody has a good time. And so I think that kind of helped when I was doing drag because I'm not like one of those like flip your hair around dancer girls who do you know what I mean? Like who can sort of do a death drop and a split and a whatever. Like I'm gonna give you life. I'm gonna give you a performance. I'm gonna give you fun. I'm gonna do songs that are very me that speak to me so that I can give you that. But I think that also like as Vanity, it's why like I thrive at the bingo thing because like let's get the students together, let's make sure everybody's having a good time, let's make sure that everybody feels like they are valid. You're here whether you're a straight guy who knows nothing about drag or you are a queer lesbian non-binary uh whoever, right? And so I think that that's like what kind of like got me into wanting to do it more and more is like that sense that I can kind of like lead my community in the party. I can sort
Hmm.
of like make sure, like, sort of like, but I'm Ching, and like make sure that everybody's having a good time because that's really what's like important to me, whether it's like a party at my house or like, you know, um, getting together with friends. Like, I want to make sure that everybody's having a good time.
That's
So
fair.
I don't think that answered anything to do with your question, but
No,
Vanity does not come into Kyle, and but Kyle definitely feeds into Vanity.
okay. I think that's the answer that's made.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Like I'm not looking to go on a date in drag. if that's your if that's what you were trying to understand.
All right, fair enough. You did mention this just a couple minutes ago of how like um you obviously do dirty bingo at the college, and
Mhm.
you're dressed up as Vanity. Is drag something you use for like just for events, or is it more than that, or do you use it for other things?
No, I mean, I'm like back in the day, we would go out in drag for fun because
Hmm.
we were like learning about drag, right? Like we wanted to get into drag. We were trying to figure out like, what was fun, a cute outfit. Like you want when you're first doing it, like you do it more because you're just like learning about, you want to look good, you want to whatever. And I think as you get into drag more, like it becomes a bit of like a different, like you find out more about that drag persona. You find out more about like who it is that you're presenting to the world when you're in drag, as opposed to just being in drag,
Mm.
right? Like before I would just get in drag, like I sure my name was Vanity, okay, whatever, like I'm going to the bar, oh I don't have hips, oh you need hips, okay I got hips, okay I got boobs, how big do they have to be, whatever. And you just kind of like are doing it to do it because you're like it's new and you're learning. But once you get that idea of like, okay, I'm Vanity LMO, this is what I offer, this is what I do, then it can become like a different thing because now like I monetize it. Like it's like a side hustle, right? Like
Mm.
I don't just show up and go, "Oh my god, let me do it. I want to do drag." Like Niagara College employs me to go and do bingo. Like Brock
Mm.
University employs me to do bingo. Like, I have gigs with, RBC and, Brunch at Glad Day and like all those things because now it's like I've sort of like honed into who Vanity Alla Mode is. So now it's like it's actually a product now as opposed to like I'm just kind of doing the thing. So like sometimes when I'm thinking of like a new outfit or like what I'm getting like what I need in drag, it's because like that commodity is something. Like okay, she's always got big earrings. Now I'm like putting earring collection together and I'm like she does this or she does that. Like what do I need to like sell that product to look like I can demand the price that I look. So it's your thought process kind of changes.
That's fair. Is
Yeah, which I also think didn't answer the question that you were
no,
asking, but
no, no, no. I'm actually really enjoying this conversation. I'm learning quite a bit. Um,
yeah.
is you just said that it's kind of a product now. Does that take anything away from being a drag queen? Because like one thing I can kind of this is I'm trying to relate somehow, and one thing I can think of is maybe I'm a big sports guy is betting. Like I just don't bet at all because the second I bet, it doesn't become about the sport anymore. It just becomes about the income. Has that ever become a problem when becoming like when doing drag, or is that not even something you think
I
about?
mean, I get in drag less now because I usually don't get in drag if I'm not making money. Like it's weird, right? Like lately I get into drag to like sort of like do a content or take a picture or whatever. But often what I'm doing is going like, okay, when's the next gig? Okay, I have that gig. If I get in drag early, I can do this many videos or I can take like 3 pictures in different makeup or like whatever that is. So it's you're sort of yeah, you think of it differently for sure. You think of it differently than I did back then,
Mhm.
right? Yeah.
Was that the goal for it to become a product, or were you just doing it for fun and then just kind of turned into one?
I mean, yeah, I think the goal I think the goal was sort of to do it in a serious enough fashion that could make something of it, that you could sort of be a recognizable thing or commodity or whatever it is. I think that maybe comes from like when I went to theater school, I was like, oh, I want to be in shows, I want to be in that. Um, so yeah, I think it was always in the back of my mind of like, how do I get to the next thing or how do I build the next thing? Right? And sometimes it's tough. Like like the when I was working at Rainbow Railroad, like it was a lot of work, right? Like I didn't really have a lot of time, and so now I've moved into a job where I'm working like a 4-day work week. So I've got like an extra day to be like, okay, like what's the idea for the outfit or what's the idea for this? And so hopefully I'll be able to sort of like continue on that road to kind of ramp it up and sort of spend a bit more time on it.
Mm.
Um, but I think it's like anything, right? Like you continue to like reassess and decide if something makes you happy, decide if you want to be putting time into it, decide what it is that you want out of it and all of that, right?
Yeah, fair. One thing I just like thought of right now is um like I guess drag like you said is an art form, and
Mhm.
art form is like there to some extent is a performance. And something I can think of right now is like actors sometimes when they do a movie, they have to get into sometimes they
Mhm.
have to get into like a certain shape, like they have to be really skinny or they have to be really ripped. One person I could think of is Christian Bale. I forget the name of the movie, but I remember
Oh,
had to get really skinny that one
yeah,
movie. And
yeah.
I can only imagine that must have somehow bled into his personal life. And why now I kind of want to ask you this because you mentioned this earlier of how Kyle is Vanity, but Vanity isn't Kyle. Has there ever been a problem of okay, Vanity's now becoming Kyle?
Um, no, I don't think I've ever like I don't think I've ever, yeah, done anything that like would compromise Kyle for the sake of vanity, right? Like some people like shave their eyebrows off and they live without eyebrows because it's easier to put your makeup on because you don't have to put your eyebrows down. Because like I cover all of this eyebrow and then
Oh,
I redraw an eyebrow that's like higher so I can like make my eye bigger, right? Like there's a
oh,
whole illusion thing to it. And so, there's people like that who make that choice and who do whatever, but I don't think I've ever really like it's important for me to have like a good life as Kyle, right? Like I'm sort of not at that point where um like I've sort of hit that sweet spot where I can sort of do the drag as much as I want to do the drag and sort of put as much as I want into it. And I've, at this place where I can like, make some coin off of it and whatever. Um, but I don't like, yeah, I don't it hasn't happened yet and I can't see it happening where, you see some drag queens where their life is drag, like
hmm,
their literal like every second of their day is drag and sort of they're we in drag sometimes you call it like as a boy, if you're male presenting out of female drag, and so that like sometimes people will live so much for drag that like they're as a boy is like sweatpants and a t-shirt and like no eyebrows and a sweater and like
mm,
whatever.
hmm,
And so I don't know. Like, I think that as I continue to assess drag and the career of drag, I don't think I would get to that point where I'd be like, okay, I'm all in. I'm like, I don't give two hoots about Kyle, um, because like, I like a lot of other things in my life other than drag, right?
hmm. Interesting. Yeah, I don't know why, but I just never thought that this might sound ignorant, but I guess I just never thought that drag like Vanity, like for example, for you, Vanity and Kyle can be separate things. I guess I just always assumed that if you're doing drag, you're going all in.
I mean, you like they are the same person. Like, I am still me when I'm a drag queen,
Hmm.
right? It's just a costume. It's just like you know what I mean? Like I don't
Hmm.
change my voice. I don't
Right.
sort of like try to like create a character. Like it's still Kyle in drag.
Mm.
You just give yourself a name.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's a way. Okay. I could process that a bit easier. Yeah. I hope I'm not coming across as like rude in in any shape or form. I really just don't know
No.
anything about it, so it's just interesting to.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think I missed that context. I thought that you sort of like knew at least a little bit about drag, but yeah, you really know absolutely
Yeah,
nothing
yeah, absolutely
about
nothing. But
drag.
I just find it interesting though. There is a fascination there, and now I
Yeah,
know a little bit.
sure. Yeah. It's curiosity. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So okay, let's switch topics here. We did talk about this
Okay.
earlier, but okay. So you said that the drag community kind of was rooted from the LGBTQ community. Um,
Hmm.
are they like now separate entities, or do you think they're still in cahoots?
Like yeah, like drag, like if you go to the Village in Toronto, like the gay neighborhood, like every bar has a drag queen in it.
Oh,
Like drag is ours, like that's like drag is like has been around for years and years and years before RuPaul's Drag Race and will be around years and years and years and years after. Yeah, like it is like you go if you're going. So when I lived in Toronto, you'd go on like any day of the week. Monday would be like Daytona Bitch at Cruise and Tangos. And Tuesday, you know that you could go and see X, Y, and Z. And Wednesdays, you went to Hump Day at Woody's. And Thursdays, you went to like that's yeah. There's it's all over the place.
Okay.
Have
Oh,
you? Do
wow.
you? Can I? I'm going to flip this on its head and ask you a question.
Okay, go
Do
ahead.
you know? Like, have you? Do you know a gay person?
I feel like I've met a gay person in my life. Like, there's no way I feel like throughout my entire life I've never met someone who's gay. But I don't think I've ever been friends with someone who's like out of the closet and like I knew they were gay.
Great. Interesting. I mean, it's different lived experience, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm a queer identified person. Most of my friends are queer identified.
Hmm.
Obviously, I have straight friends too,
Hmm.
that kind of thing. So it's sort of interesting to be in conversation with someone who's sort of so outside
Hmm.
of that understanding. Yeah, because like the drag queens that you saw in the clip on RuPaul's Drag Race, like that's from the gay community. Like they're gay.
Okay.
Like
Okay.
Shangela is gay. Courtney Act is a gay guy. I'm a gay guy. Like, yeah, that's usually what drag queens are.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. I'm trying to think like if I know, but like nothing stands out in my head. I mean, I grew
Well,
up in.
I hope for you that you find a gay friend because we're the best kind of friends. It's always a party. Like, it's just a really, I mean, I say it all the time that I am just like, I've always really been thankful that I'm queer because, like, the community and the sort of it kind of pushes you like before I was talking about like understanding the lived experience of other people, and it really like being in the queer community, being coming up in a marginalized community like the LGBTQI community, it's like you have to be open, you have to be understanding, you have to be compassionate to other people's lived experiences. And so like I wouldn't say that like anything that you've asked or anything is ignorant per se, because it's like you just don't have that lived experience,
Hmm.
right? And so I would say, if anything, is to sort of like ask yourself if um if it's a sheltered thing, ask yourself if you're sort of if there's opportunities for you in your life to broaden your perspective,
Hmm.
right? Like,
Hmm.
do you like if you're always watching the same news, flip the channel. You know what I mean? Like, if
Yeah.
you're always watching the same movies, like the Fast and the Furious will be there later.
Hmm.
Sorry, that's an assumption on you. But like those types of things, like I would just encourage, because that's why like I think I truly believe that like I have lived this really wonderfully blessed, like enriched life with so many people from so many different walks of life and lived experiences, because I'm queer, because I've had the privilege to live within that marginalized community that is about inclusivity, that is about even like the idea that within that inclusivity, within that community, we also like often are challenged to break down the heteronormative stereotypes that we have ourselves, right? Because that's ingrained in you from when you're a kid, and our society is heteronormative, cis, white primarily. And so um, when you can look at your own life and ask yourself how those can be broadened, where can I go to get different perspectives? How can I diversify the people that I spend time with? How can I diversify, the experiences that I have in front of me? It's only ever going to better your life, right?
Hmm. Yeah, I
Because
think that's.
as I get older, as I grow, as I learn more, like I'm 35 now and I still know that I have a ton to learn. But I also know, like looking behind me, that the 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 experiences I've had, and the scope of people that I've been able to experience in my life, because that's, at the end of the day, that is your life. Your life is the community that you build. Your life is the lived experiences of those that you are in community with, right? That's your life. At the end of the day,
Mhm.
like the bed behind you, the curtain on the wall, the earphones that are on your head are gone, and you are only the love that you gave and the love that you received and the community that you built, right? That's
Interesting.
all that it is. Because that is what will stand the test of time. That is what will always be, right? That's what will always exist, because it doesn't, the love that you give, the love that you receive, the community that you build is not within a wall. It's not within a structure. It's not within something that can be defined or erased. It doesn't live on a whiteboard. It doesn't live in a, it doesn't live in a bill on your table. It doesn't live on my phone. It doesn't live in anything that can be destroyed, right? And
Damn.
so, yeah, like boom, right?
Wow.
When you,
Damn. That is deep. Holy shit. I was not
when
expecting
you,
that.
and so that's why I say, like, that's why I say, like, it's not ignorance. It's not like, oh, do I, like, am I being bad because I don't know it? I just say, you don't know what you don't know,
Hmm.
right? But if you can live in community, if you can show love and compassion and receive it back from as many different types of people across all walks of life, that will only ever better you and your lived experience, because at the end of the day, that's the only thing that's going to surpass what we have here.
Wow. Jesus. That is, yeah, I'm mind blown right now. Well, I think to an extent that's why I wanted to do this podcast, because it's just something I wanted to just learn about. And
Yes, congratulations.
yeah, thank you. Just for some context, like I'm from the Great Bruce region, which is like a couple hours north. So it's
You don't say.
a very country vibe. So it's like it's not something you don't. I'm not exposed to a lot of different types of culture. So I think college gave me that opportunity, and as
Yeah,
shitty as COVID has been, it's given me the opportunity to start this platform, the podcast, and to have this very conversation right now. So I think I'm
totally.
22 years young, and I think I'm taking your advice. I think I'm getting there.
Oh my God, you were born in like 2000?
I was born '98.
Oh, the year, the year that, did I get, oh no, I got my driver's license in 2001. I got my driver's license when you were 3.
Wow.
That's great.
How do you
That's
feel?
great.
How does that make you feel?
Yeah, I feel really fucking old. No, but this is, I mean, I guess like going back to that like awe-inspiring moment apparently that I gave you. Um, like this is great because I remember, especially within my own community, um, when we were talking about it earlier, of like the drag queens that sort of like did it in protest and like stood up for their people, and really sort of like, stuck it to the man. It's like I learned from that. Like I learned from, we learn from what's in front of us. And so when we're, taking that, it's like, yeah, you know what? I'm really like, to be honest with you, dude, like no jokes about it. Like, I great, we did this podcast. It's awesome. Like you're this young kid who like now and now I
Hmm.
can share that breadth of knowledge, and I hope like something comes of it, and you sort of take that and sort of continue to kind of widen the scope. But um that's what it's all about. Like that's what the sharing and lived experience, and sharing what you know and what you thought and what you've learned with other people, right?
Yeah. Damn, I did not think we'd get this deep. I mean, this is why I wanted to have this podcast to have these types of conversations. But holy shit,
Well, there you
Kyle.
go. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll invoice you later.
You are very witty. I need to go to bingo now. This needs to happen. Yeah.
Yes, you do. Hopefully,
Okay.
yeah.
Oh,
Hopefully we'll see you in September.
yeah. Hopefully. Um. So I kind of I really don't really have any other questions. Oh, actually, no.
Yeah,
No,
I feel like
I
that was a
do.
bit of a mic drop.
Yeah. Yeah. I do have one more question before we wrap things up. What do you think is the biggest stigma with the drag community?
Oh, the biggest stigma?
Yeah.
Like, do you, like, when you ask me the biggest stigma, do you mean like a preconceived notion?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the sort of like people assume?
Yeah. Yeah. Like, what do you think
Okay.
is something I think? Because you clearly know now from having this conversation, I know nothing about the drag community.
Well, I mean, I guess you would assume that every drag queen is gay,
Yes.
right?
Yes,
Like
I
I think
would.
that you'd assume any drag queen is gay. And so back to that idea of like drag is for everybody, right? Like I know, queer cis women who do drag. I know straight cis women who do drag. I know lesbian cis women who do drag. I know heterosexual trans women who do drag. I know gay trans men who do drag. I know heterosexual trans men who do drag, like, right? So like that idea that like what you see on RuPaul's Drag Race is the one. It's not the one. It's just one,
Hmm.
but it's not
Right.
the one. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? So those things that you see that are that you'd think like, oh, what I'm being fed on this television show is the be all, the end all. It's not the be all and the end all, right? Like drag is ever evolving. Drag is as much about gender as it isn't about gender, right? Like
Hmm.
it's all of those things. And so I think the preconceived notion would be that like you think you know the person. Also, side note about the whole like you think you know the person, like I would say for all of those Northern Ontario 22-year-olds who know nothing about drag, um, tell your friends, tell your followers, tell all the people that like we are drag queens are there to entertain you. We are there to entertain you. We want you to have a good time. And it's not like don't get me wrong. I'm not saying like, oh, I don't want to be friends with anybody, but like there's this idea that somehow as entertainers that there is like an ownership placed on us by the audience, and sort of like that commodity idea like that somehow you know like straight hetero women will come to a drag bar and think that they can like grab your fake boobs and smack you on the ass, and touch you without
Jesus.
consent. Do you know what I mean? Because they're thinking we're drunk and you're having a good time, yeah, like let's do this. And so like often it's sort of like the question thing that you were talking about earlier, how like I wouldn't like right off the gate when I said like you wouldn't talk to somebody and be like, so how'd you and your husband meet,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then ask them something inappropriate. Like just because we're there for your entertainment and we're dressed as sexy women doesn't mean that you get to come at me and do whatever you want. Like
Right,
we're
right.
not we're not your playthings. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I'm sorry if you had to go through that. That's awful. People just do that?
I mean, it's not as bad as you think, but like, it's just the idea of like, you would never in your wildest dreams just meet someone and think that you can do whatever you want,
Right,
right?
right.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of, I feel like this was a breath of fresh air. I think this is a really good conversation. Um,
Thanks.
I think I just want to ask you, assuming end of the year, COVID isn't a thing anymore. I know it's a big if, but people get the vaccines, things ease up. Do you have any short-term goals?
Short-term goals, like once we all get all done,
Yeah, like once
like
once we're back to normal.
COVID's finished, what would I do first? Is that the question?
Somewhat. Like let's say like next 5 years. What are things you want to accomplish?
Oh, I don't know. See, I don't. It's funny because I had this conversation with my grandfather, who I actually just lost last week, and it's funny that you would say this, and I would revert back to him, because people would talk about 5-year plans, talk about 5-year plans, talk about 5-year plans, and like, sure, if you are talking about your finances, you should probably have a 5-year plan. You should probably know like money in, money out, what's going on for 5 years, what's your fixed term mortgage at, whatever. Don't like I'm not talking about finances, but when it comes to like what do you want to accomplish, what do you want to whatever, like I have a good life, you know? Like I have a great life. I have a good family. In 5 years, I would love for the man to show up. Like, or you know what I mean? Like, or like wherever you at, if you down the street or you up the river, like give me a call, somebody tell me where you at, because at 35, you're kind of wondering, like, this single life is over. This is done now. Right. But when it comes to that whole like, what do you want to like, I want to continue to live. I want to continue to like, you know, like lean into my good days and be extra nice to myself on my bad days. In the next 5 years, I want to have a better relationship with food. I want to keep on running. When my friends ask me to go camping, I want to go with them. My aunt lives in Boston. I want to go there once a year. My best friend Sarah lives in LA. I want to go there once a year when COVID's over. So I just want to keep on like living life. I want to keep on meeting new people. I want to keep on being in community with others. I want to keep on putting out love into the world. And like it's good, like so sometimes people I think like we ask that whole like what's your 5-year goal, or like what's your this goal, what's your that goal? And it's like, wouldn't it just be nice to like not have to worry about keeping up with the Joneses? Like wouldn't you love to get to the point where you say to yourself, like, no girl, No goals, just now. No goals, just now. Just now. Yeah, sure. Have a goal on your house, have a goal on paying off your mortgage, have a goal on your retirement savings. That's cool. Right? Like you ain't gonna be able to work forever. So like put your money away.
Mhm.
But wouldn't it be great when somebody said, no goals, just now, just right now? What do you want to do right now? Where do you want to be right now? What do you want to be doing with your time right now? As opposed to, because when you're thinking about the future, when you're thinking about like, oh, I wish I want to get there. Oh, I want to, no, be here. Don't worry about there. Like you'll get there. You'll be there when you're there, but you're here now. Right? It's almost like it's like the same idea of like love yourself the same way that you love yourself on your worst day. Love yourself at your worst. Love yourself. Pick yourself up off the floor. Tell you're worth it. Love yourself on your worst. Love yourself when you're sitting on a webinar and all you've been able to stare at is your double chin, right? Like when all you've been able to stare at is this all day, all whatever hours that we've been on this call for. Um, love yourself, right? Like love yourself at that, because 5 years down the road, if you ain't here right now doing what you can to love yourself, how the hell are you going to love yourself in 5 years?
Damn. You're just dropping bombs on me right now. Jeez.
We're laying it down. We're
Yeah.
laying it down.
Damn.
Yeah, and don't
Yeah.
use Jufro. We're
Okay.
going and don't use Jufro.
Okay. Okay.
If you learned one thing off of this whole podcast, it's a never to ever say it again in your entire life.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
On that note, thanks for tuning in to whatever this is called.
Yeah, that's been the podcast. Just before we wrap up, Kyle, is there anything you want to promote? I want to give you the chance to have that opportunity.
Yes, absolutely. There are 2 designs of Vanity a la Mode t-shirts. Ladies and gentlemen, head on over to Redbubble. Redbubble is that's where you get all your drag queen merch. Search Vanity a la Mode. There's a beautiful new floral. It's done by Eve 6000. If you need any drag merch stuff done, check out Eve 6000. And yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, Kyle, thank you so much, man. I think after this conversation, I think a goal of mine that I want to set is just to follow your advice and just meet as many people, learn about as many things as possible, receive as much love and give as much love. I think that's awesome.
Yes.
I think that's
Get it.
Yeah. So that's been another episode of Beyond the Naked Eye. Kyle, one last time, thank you so much. I think that was a great talk.
Absolutely. Have a great night, everybody.
Yeah, take care. So I've been your host, Brian Correa. Thank you so much. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.